So I have one more thing supplementally that I want to show you. I guess two more, but we'll just put it in one video. So these are some accessibility resources for lead events if you need them. So starting off on the employees page on LNet. And if you have an off-campus event, we really suggest that you have vehicles available for students, whether that's informally through reaching out to members of an organization or student hosts, or if it's sort of a large scale event requesting a vehicle. We understand that not all students have access to vehicles and transportation. And so we just feel like it's respectful in some way or fashion to have a vehicle available for students, especially if it's an off-campus event. So on the employees page on LNet, you will scroll down on the sidebar, the same where we found the request to lead event and the facilities and events form. There's also a vehicle request form. And so you can click on request a vehicle, or if you need it for a specific date, please check the vehicle calendar just to make sure, especially with athletics, and when students are in season and also traveling, certain vehicles may already be used. So at that point, you may need to find a different way. So this is the vehicle request form. Please make sure that you're giving ample time. This is not only for them to ensure that the vehicles are available, but also if you need a driver to make sure that they can contract out a driver to help. Understand that you have to have a particular license to operate a vehicle that is transporting with employment. So make sure that you check the employee handbook to make sure that if you have that particular license that you can therefore drive one of our university vehicles. So it will already pop up with your name and your employee ID, but please make sure you put in your university email and your phone number, and obviously include department or student organization, depending on what you're using it for. Then after that, you'll explain your purpose of activity. So it would be beneficial to include, like, is this going to be going back and forth? For example, we had to request a vehicle for Campus Activities Board's Wild West Fest, which was held when 54 Country was still in business. And so we clarified that the vehicle would be going back and forth every 15 minutes to make sure that students could be picked up and dropped off safely. So that would be something to include in here as well. Again, just make sure, I know there's space down here to clarify what you may need, but please include as much information as possible. It helps maintenance who handles this form. Departure date and time. Please note that they can only be checked out the day before, and they must be checked out Friday at 4 p.m. if they are happening over the weekend. That just makes sure that we're respecting people's work-life balance, and things like that. So departure date and time, return date and time, the inevitable and destination for the event, and a specific vehicle type. So understand that we have different vehicles on campus. So more often than not, it may be that you are looking at, for an event, any of these particular things for vehicle requests, depending on how many people you foresee needing to have access to a particular event. And then it asks if you need a trailer, and then it will ask if you need a professional driver. Understand that there is a charge for this. So make sure that you're checking with your organization or department funds to make sure that you can utilize a professional driver if needed. If you know particular students, if it's like an event that students have signed up beforehand and you're taking them off campus, please include all of their information. If you do not, at the time of requesting, please make sure that you are receiving that information beforehand. whether it's you asking students through a form or otherwise, but just make sure that they're provided that. It's for safety purposes. So just make sure that that is something that we are getting information for and submitting for in some fashion. Again, uploading the names, detailing the tool number. If you are not requesting a driver, please clarify who would be driving, and then submit. Like with all of our others, you'll get a email when the form has been submitted, and then you'll also get an email with an approval or clarifying particular information. If you have any questions about this form at all, please let me know, or Student Life know. We would love to help you with that. And then I'm going to show you one more before I finish this video. So you will go back into LNet onto the employees section, and then you will go down to employees forms portal here on the sidebar. And then under general forms, we can request an interpreter for our events. Now, understand that like with a lot of places right now, interpreting staff is few and far between, and we do not want to take away any resources for community members or things like that. So please limit your interpreter requests, like formal interpreter requests for large scale events where you believe that multiple students or maybe members of the deaf community may need to show up. For example, like a large scale event including like a keynote speaker or something like that would be grounds to have an interpreter, but maybe a small event that may have 10 to 15 people may not necessarily be the time in which you would request an interpreter. If you believe that interpreters should be present, but it's not a large scale event, please email Carrie McRae. She is in charge of ASL interpreting internships on campus, and she will be able to provide you with a trained student intern that can also interpret events, and they would very much appreciate that. They have to get quite a few hours, and they like working with different groups and on different topics so they can get familiar with different content. So if it's not this particular form that you need, that is also a route that you can take. So this form, if it's an initial request, a change in request, or a cancellation, please clarify that. It already includes your first, last name, and email. And then obviously the type of request you're having, and then also what the requester type is, clarifying the dates, needing the number of interpreters. Remember, if it's a longer scale event, it's better to have multiple interpreters, as like usually interpreters, as in my experience, interpret in like 20 to 30-minute chunks and balance off of each other. It's better that way. The services tend to be more effective that way. Start time and end time, clarifying what particular event you need the interpreter for, the location, putting your information for the contact person, including your telephone number, including the preferred communication method that you use, and then clarifying any additional details. Note at the bottom here, what's in bold, that it's 2 weeks advance is required. Unless you're needing just a small scale interpreter, still give the interns at least a week to get familiarized with the content. It helps with making actually beneficial services. It helps if they have any questions or things like that. As I've said before, please let Student Life know if you have any questions, or let Selena Meets know, specifically with this particular internship or interpreter internship form, as they're in charge of accessibility services. But also, if you have any questions, please let Student Life know. We are here to help, and we would love to help.